The sapphire necklace caught the candlelight like captured starfire, each facet trembling against Eleanor Whitmore's pale throat as she stood before 300 of England's finest. The ballroom of Ashworth Manor stretched around her in golden splendor, crystal chandeliers casting dancing shadows across silk gowns and jeweled waistcoats, the melody of violins weaving through whispered conversations, and the rustle of taffeta. Yet beneath the grandeur, tension crackled like lightning before a storm. Eleanor's fingers found the cold weight of the heirloom sapphires, the same stones that had graced the throats of Whitmore duchesses for 7 generations. The same stones that had watched her late husband's cruelties, had witnessed the tears of tenant families turned from their homes, had been present at every decision that valued profit over human dignity. Her heart thundered against her stays as she lifted trembling hands to the diamond clasp. "I choose wrong," she whispered, her words somehow carrying across the sudden hush that had fallen over the assembly. 300 pairs of eyes fixed upon her as the Duke of Whitmore's ancestral necklace, worth more than most men earned in a lifetime, slipped from her throat into her waiting palm. The weight of centuries settled in her cupped hands. Corruption, cruelty, and wealth built upon the broken backs of those who worked the land. Through the crowd stepped Thomas Hale, his broad shoulders cutting through the sea of silk and satin like a ship through troubled waters. His hands, rough from honest labor and stained with ink from endless tenant ledgers, reached out as Eleanor extended the necklace toward him. Their fingers brushed for one electric moment, sending shivers through her that had nothing to do with the evening's chill. The ballroom erupted in scandalized whispers. "Madness," someone hissed. "Utter ruin," breathed another. But in Thomas's dark eyes, Eleanor saw something far more dangerous than society's censure. She saw respect, understanding, and the flicker of a love that had been carefully banked for years, like coals, waiting for air to kindle them into flame. She had taken a step no duchess was meant to take, crossed a line that separated her world from his, as surely as castle walls divided lord from serf. Her entire existence might crumble because of this moment, but as Thomas's calloused fingers closed around the cold sapphires, Eleanor felt something she had never experienced in all her years of marriage and widowhood. Finally, the choice was hers. Eleanor Whitmore had learned early that a woman's worth was measured in bloodlines and dowries, not in the quick intelligence that blazed behind her green eyes or the compassionate heart that ached for justice. Born Eleanor Ashcroft to a once proud house whose fortunes had dwindled like autumn leaves, she had been educated by the finest governesses her family could afford, which meant she could speak 3 languages, play the piano with skill, and quote Shakespeare while embroidering delicate roses on silk. What those governesses had not taught her was how to survive a marriage to a man who viewed his wife as merely another possession in his vast collection. The late Duke of Whitmore had been 20 years her senior when they wed, his grey eyes cold as winter stones, and his heart carved from the same unforgiving material. For 8 years she had played the perfect duchess, hosting dinner parties where men discussed enclosure acts that would drive families from their ancestral homes, smiling prettily while her husband spoke of tenants, as though they were livestock to be managed rather than human souls deserving of dignity. Her private journals, hidden in a locked drawer of her writing desk, told a different story. Pages upon pages revealed the guilt that gnawed at her conscience like a persistent wound, the longing for a life of meaning beyond the gilded cage of her title. She had inherited not only the Whitmore name upon her husband's death, but the crushing weight of centuries of expectation and the terrible knowledge of how that wealth had been accumulated. Thomas Hale remembered hunger as his first teacher. Born in a cottage on Whitmore lands, he had learned to read by firelight using pages torn from discarded books, his mother holding him on her lap as she traced letters with fingers cracked from washing laundry for the manor house. His father had been a good man, honest as the day was long, who had worked the same fields his grandfather had tended before him. That honesty had been his downfall. When the old duke had demanded impossible rents and created debts where none had existed, Thomas's father had spoken against the injustice. For his troubles, he had been thrown into debtor's prison, where fever had taken him within a month. Thomas had been 14 then, old enough to understand that his father had died, not from illness but from a broken heart and broken spirit. The local vicar, moved by the boy's fierce intelligence and hungering mind, had taken Thomas under his wing. Father Matthews had taught him rhetoric and philosophy, mathematics and history, nurturing a quick wit and natural leadership that might have made Thomas a scholar in different circumstances. Instead, his education had forged him into something more dangerous, a man of the people who could speak the language of power. As steward to the Whitmore estate, Thomas had managed the accounts with meticulous honesty, finding ways to be fair to tenants, while still maintaining the profits that kept the duchy solvent. He had earned respect among the working folk and suspicion among the nobility, a man who belonged fully to neither world, yet understood both intimately. The year was 1794, and revolution whispered across the English countryside like wind through wheat fields. In France, nobles had lost their heads along with their titles, and even in England, the Enclosure Acts were driving desperate families from their homes. Change crackled in the air, as dangerous and unpredictable as summer lightning. Lady Agatha Pemberton, Eleanor's dearest friend since childhood, served as the voice of aristocratic propriety. "Eleanor, darling," she would say, her fan fluttering nervously, "your charitable impulses are admirable, but there are proper channels for such things. One simply does not involve oneself directly with trade and tenant concerns." Lord Rutledge represented the old ways with his predatory smile and hounds that lingered too long when he kissed Eleanor's gloved fingers. Wealthy beyond measure and cruel by nature, he embodied everything Thomas despised about the nobility and everything Eleanor was expected to accept as her future. Mrs. Hale, Thomas's mother, still lived in the same cottage where her son had been born. Arthritis had bent her back and gnarled her hands, but her spirit remained unbroken. She watched Eleanor with the keen eyes of a woman who had served the gentry all her life and knew the difference between genuine kindness and patronizing charity. The divide between Eleanor and Thomas was not merely one of wealth or birth. It was a chasm carved by centuries of tradition, as wide as the distance between the manor house on its hill and the cottages huddled in the valley below. She represented privilege and decadence, though increasingly troubled by guilt over the source of her comfort. He embodied hard-earned knowledge and dignity forged in the fires of injustice, yet possessed of an innate nobility that had nothing to do with bloodlines. As pressure mounted for Eleanor to remarry, her steward warned of growing unrest among the tenants, and Lord Rutledge's interest grew more predatory by the day. Both she and Thomas found themselves navigating expectations as treacherous as a ship's passage through storm-tossed seas. Neither could have predicted that their separate struggles would soon intertwine their fates, as surely as ivy embraces an oak tree, or that love would bloom in the most unlikely of soils. Eleanor discovered the true extent of the estate's troubles on a rain-soaked Tuesday morning, when her current steward, a nervous man appointed by the Duke's solicitors, presented her with ledgers that revealed the depth of financial mismanagement. Tenants were months behind on rents they could never afford. Families were abandoning their homes to seek work in the factories of Manchester, and those who remained spoke in hushed tones of rebellion. "Perhaps, Your Grace," the steward suggested with trembling hands, "we might consider Lord Rutledge's offer to consolidate the management of these concerns." The thought of placing her estate under Rutledge's control made Eleanor's stomach turn. She had seen how he managed his own lands, with evictions and brutality that squeezed every penny from the soil and the people who worked it. There had to be another way, which was how she found herself standing before the modest door of Thomas Hale's study on a grey afternoon, her heart hammering like a bird trapped in a cage. The room she entered was a revelation. Where the Manor's library boasted leather-bound volumes arranged more for display than reading, Thomas's study lived and breathed with purpose. Maps covered every wall, marked with careful notations about soil quality and crop rotation. Ledgers lay open on his oak desk, filled with columns of figures in his precise handwriting. Quills sharpened to perfect points, weighted in neat rows, and scattered among the practical papers were sketches, architectural plans for improved cottages, designs for better drainage systems, and tucked beneath a stack of correspondence, a detailed drawing of the Whitmore orchard in spring bloom. Eleanor lifted her chin as Thomas rose from behind his desk, his dark eyes wary. He was taller than she remembered, his shoulders broad beneath a simple wool coat that had been mended with careful stitches. His hair, black as a moonless night, was tied back with a leather cord, and when he bowed to her, the gesture held respect but not subservience. "Your Grace," he said, his voice carrying the educated tones Father Matthews had taught him layered over the accent of his birth. "I confess myself surprised by this visit." "I seek honest counsel, Mr. Hale," Eleanor replied, pleased that her voice remained steady despite the intimate atmosphere of being alone with him in such an unadorned space. "I am told there is unrest among the tenants. I am also told you are the cause of it." Thomas's jaw tightened, and she saw the flash of old pain in his eyes, the hurt of a boy whose father had died for speaking truth to power. "I am accused of many things, Your Grace. Sedition, agitation, corrupting the natural order." His hands clenched at his sides. "I stand guilty only of believing that a man should not starve while working land that feeds others, that a woman should not watch her children waste away because her husband cannot pay rent set impossibly high." The passion in his voice stirred something deep within Eleanor's chest. She had spent years listening to men discuss the tenant problem, as though families were mathematical equations to be solved rather than human beings deserving of dignity. "The estate faces collapse," she said quietly, moving closer to his desk where she could see the careful notations he had made. Each entry told a story. The widow Morrison behind on rent since her husband's death, but caring for 3 young children. The Hartwell family, whose cottage needed repairs that would cost more than they could earn in 2 years. The Baker's family, forced to choose between buying grain for bread and coal for warmth. "It need not," Thomas replied, his voice gentler now, "but truth is rarely comfortable, Your Grace, and the solutions will require considerable changes to how things have always been done." Eleanor studied his face, noting the lines of fatigue around his eyes, the calluses on his hands from work that went far beyond managing accounts. This was a man who had rolled up his sleeves and labored alongside those he sought to help, who had earned their trust through shared sweat rather than inherited authority. "I need your help," she said, the words emerging before she could stop them. Not as a duchess speaking to a tenant, but as one person to another who cares about more than profit margins and social expectations. For a long moment, they stood in silence, broken only by the whisper of rain against the windows and the distant lowing of cattle in the fields. Eleanor found herself acutely aware of Thomas's presence, of the way candlelight played across his features, and the warmth that seemed to radiate from his person despite the autumn chill. "You would face scandal," he warned softly. "The gentry will not forgive a duchess who treats her steward as an equal partner rather than a servant to be directed." "Let them whisper," Eleanor replied, surprised by her own boldness. "I have lived too long caring more for their opinions than for what I know to be right." Thomas moved to the window, gazing out at the fields that held so many memories, good and painful alike. "I will remain as steward," he said finally, "but under one condition. You must be prepared to hear truths that may displease you, to make decisions that will turn your world upside down. I will not be party to pretty lies or gentle deceptions." As Eleanor prepared to leave, her gaze fell once more upon the sketch tucked beneath his papers, the orchard drawing with its careful attention to the play of light through apple blossoms. Something about it called to her, a whisper of memory from childhood visits to the estate before her marriage had changed everything. Thomas noticed her attention and quickly moved to cover the sketch, but not before she saw her own figure beneath the trees, captured with an artist's eye for detail and something that looked remarkably like devotion. "Mr. Hale," she said softly, her hand on the door handle, "that drawing—" "A foolish fancy," he interrupted, his cheeks darkening with what might have been embarrassment. Nothing more. But as Eleanor walked back through the rain toward the manor house, she carried with her the memory of Thomas's eyes when he thought she wasn't looking, and the dawning realization that this partnership might awaken more than just her conscience. The transformation began with morning rides through the estate. Eleanor's midnight blue riding habit, a splash of color against the autumn countryside, as she and Thomas surveyed fields and cottages together. Where once she had viewed her lands through the windows of a carriage, now she dismounted to walk through mud and stubble, learning the names of tenant families and the stories written in their lined faces. Mrs. Patterson has been trying to repair her roof with branches and old sacking, Thomas explained as they stood before a cottage whose thatch had been damaged in the previous week's storm. "She's proud, won't accept what she calls charity, but if we presented it as an investment in the property—" Eleanor nodded, already understanding his meaning. She was learning to navigate the delicate balance between genuine help and wounded pride, to offer assistance in ways that preserved dignity rather than diminishing it. Their evenings stretched long over ledgers and correspondence, the library transformed into a working space where Eleanor would roll up the silk sleeves of her gown to better manage the papers spread across the massive oak table. Thomas would arrive after his day's work, his coat still carrying the scent of fresh air and honest labor, and together they would pass through accounts and plan improvements that could benefit everyone. "Your husband kept separate books," Thomas told her one evening in October, his voice carefully neutral as he showed her a hidden ledger that revealed the true profits extracted from tenant labor, what the stewards reported to him and what he actually collected. Eleanor's hands trembled as she turned the pages, seeing the systematic cruelty laid out in neat columns of figures. Families charged for repairs never made, fines levied for imaginary infractions, rents raised arbitrarily whenever the Duke needed additional funds for his London gambling debts. "I never knew," she whispered, though even as she said it, she realized that ignorance had been willful. She had chosen not to look too closely at the source of her comfortable life. "Thomas, how can I ever make amends for this?" "By choosing differently now," he replied, his voice gentle with understanding rather than judgment. "By being the Duchess your people need rather than the one society expects." It was during these long conversations that Eleanor began to glimpse the man beneath Thomas's careful composure. He spoke of his father with a love unmarred by bitterness, describing how the elder Hale had taught his son to see dignity in all honest work. He revealed his own struggles with self-doubt, whether his education made him somehow less authentic in representing his birth class, whether his feelings for a woman so far above his station were a betrayal of everything he claimed to believe about equality. One rain-soaked evening in late October, a sudden downpour caught them inspecting the village school that Eleanor had decided to expand. The small building offered no shelter from the driving rain, and Thomas insisted on escorting her to his cottage rather than attempting the longer journey back to the manor in such weather. The cottage was smaller than Eleanor's dressing room, but it radiated a warmth she had never experienced in all her years at Whitmore House. A fire crackled cheerfully in the stone hearth, casting dancing shadows on walls lined with books, philosophy and poetry, alongside practical manuals on agriculture and animal husbandry. Thomas's mother, Mrs. Hale, welcomed Eleanor with the same courtesy she might have shown any guest, neither fawning nor hostile. "Sit by the fire, Your Grace," the older woman said, pressing a cup of tea into Eleanor's chilled hands. "That silk will be no protection against the damp." Eleanor found herself studying Mrs. Hale's weathered face, seeing strength there that had nothing to do with wealth or position. This woman had buried a husband, raised a son alone, and maintained her dignity through decades of hardship. When their eyes met, Eleanor saw something that made her breath catch: recognition, understanding, and perhaps even approval. "Thomas speaks of the changes you're making," Mrs. Hale said quietly, as her son hung Eleanor's sodden cloak by the fire. "The families are grateful. It's been many years since Whitmore cared more for their welfare than their own comfort." Thomas busied himself preparing fresh tea, but Eleanor caught the flush that colored his neck above his simple shirt collar. The cottage felt warm and alive in ways the manor never had, filled with evidence of lives lived with purpose and connection rather than mere display. As the weeks passed, Eleanor became increasingly aware of Thomas's physical presence, the way his hands moved with confident precision when he demonstrated proper techniques for testing soil quality, the unconscious grace with which he mounted his horse, the curve of his mouth when he smiled at something one of the tenant children had said. She found herself inventing reasons to stand closer when they reviewed maps, her pulse quickening when his sleeve brushed against hers as they worked. The attraction was not one-sided. Eleanor caught Thomas watching her when he thought she was absorbed in her reading, his dark eyes holding an expression that made her stomach flutter with unfamiliar warmth. When she stumbled on uneven ground during one of their inspections, his steadying hand lingered at her elbow, far longer than propriety demanded, his touch burning through the fabric of her gown. Their conversations grew more personal as autumn deepened into winter. Eleanor found herself describing the loneliness of her marriage, not the physical discomfort, which would have been unseemly to discuss, but the spiritual emptiness of living with a man who saw her as an ornament rather than a person. "I used to imagine conversations with him," she confessed one December evening, as snow fell softly outside the library windows. "I would practice in my mind what I might say about books I had read, or ideas I had formed, but when I tried to speak of such things, his eyes would glaze over as though I were reciting shopping lists." Thomas set down his pen, giving her his full attention in the way that still surprised her. "What kinds of ideas?" he asked. Eleanor felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Foolish things, perhaps. I wondered why we could not establish schools for all the children on the estate, not just the boys. I thought about whether there might be ways to improve the cottages that would cost less than constant repairs. I even wondered," she paused, then continued in a rush, "whether the profits from our lands might be shared more fairly with those who actually work them." "Those are not foolish ideas," Thomas said quietly. "They are the thoughts of someone who sees clearly and cares deeply." Their eyes met and held, the space between them charged with possibilities neither dared name aloud. Eleanor felt her breath grow shallow as Thomas rose from his chair and moved toward her, his expression intent and wondering. "Eleanor," he whispered, her given name falling from his lips like a prayer or a confession. She stood as well, drawn by forces stronger than propriety or wisdom. They were close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body, His hand reached up as though to touch her cheek, and Eleanor felt herself leaning toward him, her lips parting slightly in anticipation of, "I must not," she gasped, stepping back so quickly that she knocked against the table edge. "You and I, it cannot be done." Thomas dropped his hand, his expression stricken, but understanding. "Forgive me," he said. "I should not have." "No," Eleanor interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do not apologize for something we both, for what nearly—" She gathered her shawl and fled from the library, leaving Thomas standing alone among their scattered papers and dreams. But even as she ran, Eleanor's heart raced not with fear but with the terrible, wonderful knowledge that what lay between them was far more than duty or friendship, and far more dangerous than either had imagined. The accusation arrived with the January frost, delivered by a contingent of soldiers whose scarlet coats stood out like blood drops against the snow-covered estate. Eleanor watched from her bedroom window as they surrounded Thomas's cottage, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate for freedom. Lord Rutledge had not come himself. Cowards rarely did their own dirty work, but his influence hung over the proceedings like smoke from a poorly tended fire. The charges were sedition, inciting rebellion among the tenant class, and correspondence with known radicals sympathetic to the French revolutionary cause. "This is madness," Eleanor declared to Captain Morrison, the officer who presented her with the warrant. "Mr. Hale is guilty of nothing more than performing his duties as steward with unusual honesty." The captain, a man whose youth made his authority seem borrowed rather than earned, shifted uncomfortably under her imperious gaze. "Begging your pardon, Your Grace, but we have evidence of treasonous correspondence." Letters in his hand, discussing plans to organize the working class, to redistribute wealth from its rightful owners. Eleanor's blood turned to ice water. She knew Thomas's correspondence. She had seen every letter he wrote regarding estate business, had helped compose several of them herself. But as the captain produced a sheaf of papers from his coat, she recognized Thomas's precise handwriting, discussing topics that made her stomach clench with dread. "The time has come for decisive action," one letter read in Thomas's familiar script. "The current system benefits only those who inherit privilege through accident of birth, while grinding down those who create actual wealth through their labor. We must move beyond mere reform to fundamental restructuring of how power is distributed." Another letter spoke of liberating resources currently hoarded by the aristocratic class and establishing true equality regardless of bloodline or inherited title. Eleanor stared at the papers, her world tilting on its axis. These were Thomas's words, his handwriting, his seal, but the ideas expressed were far more radical than anything he had shared with her. Had she misjudged him so completely? Had his gentle manner and reasonable proposals been a mask for revolutionary sympathies that could destroy them both? As news of Thomas's arrest spread, Eleanor found herself increasingly isolated. Lady Agatha arrived within hours, her face pale with social horror. "Eleanor, darling, you must distance yourself immediately," she urged, pacing Eleanor's drawing room like a nervous cat. "The entire county is talking about your association with this radical. Lord Rutledge has been very concerned about your reputation, very protective. He might still be willing to offer his protection if you act quickly to denounce any connection with treasonous activities." The suggestion that she throw herself on Rutledge's mercy made Eleanor's skin crawl, but the alternative seemed equally impossible. If the letters were genuine, if Thomas truly harbored revolutionary sympathies, then her public support of him could be seen as evidence of her own treasonous leanings. Yet doubt gnawed at her like physical pain. The Thomas she had come to know to love, though she had never allowed herself to use that word, seemed incapable of the cold calculation these letters suggested. His passion for justice burned bright and clean, but he had always emphasized reform through legal means rather than violent overthrow. The answer came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Hale, her arthritis forgotten in her distress, arrived at Eleanor's kitchen door on a bitter February morning, clutching a leather satchel against her thin chest. "Your Grace," the older woman said when Eleanor insisted on receiving her in the morning room rather than sending her away, "my son is many things, but he's no traitor. These letters," she opened the satchel with shaking fingers, revealing sheets of paper covered with Thomas's handwriting. "These are the letters he actually wrote. The ones they showed you. Someone has been very clever with forgery." Eleanor examined the genuine correspondence with growing fury. Thomas's actual letters to reformist groups in London were reasonable documents advocating for gradual change through legal means, parliamentary reform and education rather than revolution. Someone had taken his authentic letters and created forgeries that used his writing style to express far more dangerous sentiments. "Rutledge," Eleanor breathed, the name tasting like poison on her tongue. She should have known. Who else had the resources to orchestrate such elaborate deception? Who else stood to benefit from destroying both Thomas and Eleanor's reputation for independence? But even as she recognized the trap that had been laid for them, Eleanor realized how perfectly it had been constructed. Her own aristocratic peers had watched her growing friendship with Thomas with increasing suspicion. Her defense of him would be seen as evidence of her own corruption rather than proof of his innocence. The social isolation was swift and merciless. Families who had called upon her regularly suddenly found themselves too busy for visits. Invitations ceased arriving, and when Eleanor appeared at church, conversations died as she approached, replaced by meaningful looks and barely concealed whispers. "You have become quite the topic of conversation," Lord Rutledge informed her during one of his increasingly frequent visits, his smile holding all the warmth of a serpent's embrace. "Society is concerned about your judgment. The influence of inappropriate companions can be so damaging to a lady's reputation." Eleanor met his gaze without flinching, though inwardly she recoiled from the predatory gleam in his pale eyes. "And what would you suggest, my lord?" "Accept my protection," he replied, moving closer than propriety allowed. "Marry me, Eleanor. Let me shield you from the consequences of your charitable impulses. Your steward's fate is already sealed. There's nothing you can do for him now except ensure that his disgrace does not drag you down as well." The offer was presented as generosity, but Eleanor heard the threat beneath the honeyed words. Marry Rutledge, abandon Thomas to his fate, and her reputation might be salvaged. Refuse, and she would face ruin alongside the man she loved. That night, alone in her chambers, Eleanor wept over the sapphire necklace that had started everything, the symbol of hollow vows and inherited guilt. Her whispered words echoed in the darkness. "I chose wrong then. I must not now." But as dawn broke grey and cheerless over the frozen estate, Eleanor was no longer certain that right choices were possible when the entire world seemed arrayed against love and justice. Eleanor Whitmore had never addressed a gathering of magistrates in her life, but as she swept into the county courthouse on a bitter February morning, her black mourning dress transformed into armor and her chin lifted with ducal authority, she commanded attention like a force of nature. The assembly hall fell silent as she approached the bench where Thomas sat in chains, his face bearing the marks of prison life, but his eyes still blazing with unbroken spirit. Lord Rutledge lounged in the gallery, his satisfied smile faltering as Eleanor took her place before the assembled justices. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed chamber, "I come before you not as a woman seeking favor, but as the Duchess of Whitmore demanding justice." The chief magistrate, a portly man who had dined at her table many times, shifted uncomfortably. "Your Grace, This is most irregular. The proceedings are based on forged documents, Eleanor interrupted, producing Mrs. Hale's leather satchel. I hold here the genuine correspondence of my estate steward, Thomas Hale. What has been presented to this court as evidence of sedition is nothing more than an elaborate deception designed to destroy an honest man. She spread the authentic letters across the magistrate's bench, her movements precise and controlled despite the fury burning in her chest. Mr. Hale's actual words advocate for parliamentary reform and gradual social change through legal means. The letters used to arrest him are clever forgeries that use his handwriting style to express sentiments he has never held. That is a serious accusation, the magistrate warned, though Eleanor could see uncertainty creeping into his expression as he compared the two sets of documents. It is a serious crime, Eleanor replied. One orchestrated by Lord Rutledge to eliminate a man whose honesty threatened his plans to acquire control of my estates through marriage. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Rutledge shot to his feet, his face flushed with rage. This is preposterous. Your Grace's obvious attachment to the accused has clearly clouded her judgment. She speaks from emotion rather than reason. Eleanor turned to face him, her green eyes blazing with controlled fury. I speak from knowledge, my lord. Knowledge of your attempts to coerce me into marriage through threats and manipulation. Knowledge of your systematic corruption of tenant records and illegal seizure of common lands. Knowledge of the bribes you have paid to magistrates and officials to ensure favorable rulings for your interests. She reached into her reticule and produced a second sheaf of papers, correspondence she had gathered through careful investigation over the past weeks, using her social connections and family name to unlock doors that would have remained closed to anyone of lesser rank. These documents detail Lord Rutledge's various crimes, including his forgery of evidence against Mr. Hale. I have testimonials from 3 separate writing masters who can attest to the deception, as well as evidence of payments made to certain officials to ensure swift conviction without proper examination of the evidence. The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor could see calculation flickering behind the magistrate's eyes as they weighed the political consequences of their decision. Convicting Thomas based on forged evidence would be embarrassing enough, but ignoring the testimony of a duchess who clearly had evidence of broader corruption would be far more dangerous to their own positions. Through legal maneuvering that required every favor she could call in from her late husband's connections, and strategic use of funds that would normally have gone to new gowns and London entertainments, Eleanor secured Thomas's release within a week. She waited outside the prison gates at dawn, her heart hammering as the heavy doors creaked open and Thomas emerged, blinking in the pale winter sunlight. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other across the cobblestones, two people who had survived a trial that might have destroyed them both. Then Thomas walked toward her, his steps growing more certain with each pace, until they stood close enough to touch but still separated by years of conditioning and social expectations. You came, he said simply, his voice rough with emotion. I promised you honesty, Eleanor replied, reaching into her cloak to withdraw the familiar weight of the Whitmore sapphire necklace. I choose wrongly, no longer, Thomas, I choose you. She pressed the necklace into his hands, not as a symbol of her station but as proof of her commitment. Not as duchess to steward, not as superior to subordinate, but as Eleanor to Thomas, as a woman who loves a man worthy of her heart. Thomas's fingers closed around the cold sapphires, but his eyes never left her face. Eleanor, he whispered, her name carrying all the longing and devotion he had carefully hidden for so many years. I love you beyond reason, beyond wisdom, beyond any consideration of consequence or propriety. When their lips finally met in the grey dawn light, it tasted of freedom and choice, and the promise of a future built on truth rather than tradition. Eleanor felt something break open in her chest, not her heart, but the cage that had surrounded it, releasing her into a life she had never dared to imagine possible. The kiss was witnessed by prison guards and early rising merchants, and by noon the entire county would be discussing the scandalous sight of the Duchess of Whitmore embracing her former steward outside the gates of the county jail. But Eleanor found that she no longer cared what society thought of her choices. Her defiance rippled outward like stones thrown into still water. Tenant families who had watched her fight for Thomas began to organize for better working conditions and fairer treatment. Other progressive landowners, inspired by her example, began implementing reforms on their own estates. The careful facade of aristocratic unity began to crack, allowing space for new ideas about equality and justice to take root. Thomas accepted not merely her love, but her partnership, understanding that together they could accomplish far more than either could achieve alone. His bitterness toward the aristocratic class softened as he saw Eleanor's genuine transformation from ornament to advocate, while his passionate commitment to justice helped her find the courage to challenge systems she had once accepted without question. 3 years later, Eleanor stood in the orchard where Thomas had once sketched her in secret, watching their 2-year-old daughter chase butterflies among the apple blossoms. The child's dark hair caught the afternoon sunlight as she toddled after the dancing insects, her laughter bright as silver bells in the warm spring air. "She has your determination," Thomas observed, settling beside Eleanor on the stone bench they had installed beneath the largest tree. "Watch how she refuses to give up, even when the butterflies fly higher than her reach." Eleanor smiled, her hand finding his with the easy comfort of long companionship. Their marriage had caused scandal at first, 3 months of social isolation that had tested their resolve, but ultimately strengthened their bond. Gradually, however, the success of their reforms had spoken louder than society's disapproval. The Whitmore estates now boasted the most prosperous tenant farms in 3 counties, with schools for all children regardless of gender, improved cottages that provided warmth and dignity, and profit-sharing arrangements that ensured those who worked the land benefited from its abundance. Other progressive landowners had begun adopting similar practices, creating a quiet revolution that spread through reason rather than violence. Eleanor still wore silk gowns, though she chose practical fabrics that could withstand mud and honest work. Thomas still managed the estate accounts, though now he did so as co-owner rather than employee. Their partnership had evolved into something neither aristocratic tradition nor revolutionary ideology had anticipated: true equality between 2 people who valued each other's strengths and complemented each other's weaknesses. Lord Rutledge had fled England after his corruption was fully exposed, his estates confiscated by the Crown and distributed among his former tenants. Lady Agatha, initially horrified by Eleanor's choices, had eventually been won over by the evident happiness of the marriage and had become an unlikely advocate for women's education among her social circle. Mrs. Hale lived now in a comfortable cottage on the estate, her arthritis eased by regular medical care and her heart gladdened by watching her son's dreams fulfilled. She served as unofficial grandmother to little Margaret, named for the saint of outcasts and rebels, and often told the child stories of her father's youth that mixed truth with gentle mythology. "Do you ever regret it?" Thomas asked quietly, following Eleanor's gaze as she watched their daughter discover a fallen apple blossom and hold it up like a treasure. "The life you might have had if you had chosen differently." Eleanor considered the question seriously, as she always did with matters that touched their shared history. She thought of the Duchess she might have been, remarried to someone suitable, presiding over empty social functions, managing estates she never truly saw or understood. She thought of the comfort that path might have provided, the social acceptance that would have cushioned her days. Then she looked at Thomas, at the man whose love had awakened her conscience and whose partnership had transformed her from ornament to agent of change, and felt only gratitude for the courage that had led her to this moment. "I regret only the years I spent choosing wrongly," she said, lifting his calloused hand to her lips. "But perhaps those years taught me to recognize truth when I finally found it." Their daughter's delighted squeal drew their attention as she successfully captured a butterfly, holding it gently in her cupped palms before releasing it back to the sky. In that simple act of wonder and mercy, Eleanor saw the future they were building together, a world where strength served compassion, where justice grew from love rather than law, and where choices were made from conscience rather than convention. As evening painted the orchard in shades of gold and amber, Eleanor and Thomas walked hand in hand toward their home, their daughter riding high on Thomas's shoulders and chattering about butterflies and blossoms and all the wonders that awaited discovery. Behind them, the apple trees rustled with promise, their branches heavy with fruit that would feed not just the manor house, but every family on the estate. The sapphire necklace rested now in a place of honor in their bedroom, not as a symbol of inherited privilege, but as a reminder of the moment when choice triumphed over expectation, when love proved stronger than social convention, and when two people discovered that the greatest luxury was the freedom to build a life based on shared values rather than separate duties. In the distance, lights began to twinkle in cottage windows, each one representing a family whose circumstances had been transformed by the radical notion that prosperity should be shared by all who helped create it. And in the manor house on the hill, the Duchess of Whitmore sat down to dinner with her husband and child, knowing that she had finally found the life that had been waiting for her all along, not despite her choices, but because of them. Anna stood by her window, watching the rain fall on cold stone. She pressed her hand against the glass. Her leg ached today. It always ached when storms came. Down in the courtyard, she could hear them laughing. The other ladies, the pretty ones, the ones who walked straight and tall. "There she goes again," they would whisper. "The lame girl, such a shame." Anna closed her eyes. She had heard those words her whole life. Her mother's voice cut through the silence. "Anna, come here, now." Lady Catherine stood in the doorway. Her face was cold as winter stone. "Look at you, standing there like a sad little bird." "Mother, I was just what? Feeling sorry for yourself again?" Her mother stepped closer. "Do you know what your father said today?" Anna's heart sank. She knew it would not be kind words. "He said you are a shame to our family name. A broken thing that brings us no honor." The words hit Anna like stones, but she had learned not to cry. Not anymore. "But today, your shame becomes useful." Lady Catherine smiled, but it was not warm. "You are to marry. A royal bond has been arranged." Anna's breath caught. "Marriage? But who would—" "The Crown Prince, Lord Adrian himself." The room spun. Anna grabbed the wall to steady herself. "But why? Why would he agree to marry me?" Her mother laughed. It was a harsh sound. "Because, my dear daughter, even princes must do their duty. Even when that duty is unpleasant." Anna felt her world crack open. She was not a bride. She was a punishment. Later that night, alone in her chamber, Anna heard the whispers in the halls. "The Crown Mother is furious," a servant said. Lady Mira had other plans for her son. She wanted him to marry Lady Elena, the golden-haired beauty. Now she's trapped with the broken girl instead. Anna pulled her blanket closer. She knew Lady Mira. The Crown Mother was powerful and cruel. If Mira wanted this marriage broken, Anna was in danger. But deep inside her chest, something stirred, something that refused to break. Her heart still beat, her spirit still fought. Tomorrow, her life would change forever. She did not know if it would be better or worse, but she was still here, still breathing, still hoping. Maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Lord Adrian stood in his study. Maps covered his desk. Letters from distant lands lay in neat piles. The people called him cold. They said his heart was made of stone. They were wrong. Adrian felt everything. Too much. That was his curse. He remembered Sarah, his little sister. She had been only 12 when the fever took her. "You should have saved me, Adrian," she had whispered before she died. "You promised you would always protect me." Those words haunted him still. 3 years later, they cut him like knives. His mother entered without knocking. Lady Mira never knocked. "Adrian, we need to talk." He looked up. Her face was sharp with anger. "This marriage is a mistake," she said. "Anna is beneath you, weak, flawed. She will bring shame to our house." Adrian set down his pen. "The contract is signed, Mother. Contracts can be broken." Her voice was soft, dangerous. Accidents can happen. Something cold settled in Adrian's stomach. "What are you saying?" "I am saying problems can be solved." Quietly, Adrian stood slowly. "You will not harm her. She is nothing. A limping girl who—" "Enough." His voice cut like steel. "Anna is to be my wife. Anyone who threatens her, threatens me." Lady Mira's eyes flashed. "You fool boy. You choose a broken girl over your own mother. I choose honor over cruelty." After she left, Adrian walked to his window. Tomorrow he would meet his bride. He had seen Anna before, from a distance, at court gatherings. While others saw her limp, he saw something else. The way she helped a fallen child stand up. The way she listened when old servants spoke. The way she smiled at flowers, even when she thought no one was watching. Anna was kind. In a world full of sharp edges and cold hearts, she was soft and warm. His mother wanted to destroy that, but Adrian would not let it happen. He had failed to protect Sarah. He would not fail Anna. The marriage was duty, but perhaps it could become something more, something real, something worth fighting for. Adrian touched the ring in his pocket, his grandmother's ring, simple gold, with a small blue stone. Tomorrow, he would give it to Anna, and he would make her a promise. "You are safe with me," he whispered to the empty room. "I swear it." The great hall felt huge and cold. Anna walked slowly down the long stone path. Every step echoed. Every step reminded her of why she was here. The limp seemed worse today, or maybe she just felt it more. Ladies whispered behind their fans. Lords looked away. "There she is," someone said, "the broken bride." Anna's cheeks burned. But she kept walking. At the end of the hall stood Lord Adrian, tall and straight, dark hair, strong shoulders. She had seen him before, but never this close. Never when she had to look him in the eyes. Anna stopped 3 steps away. Protocol said she should curtsy, but her leg hurt, and she was afraid she might fall. The silence stretched long. Everyone was watching, waiting to see her stumble. Then, something unexpected happened. Lord Adrian stepped forward, and he bowed to her. Not a small nod, a real bow. Deep and respectful. The hall gasped. "Lady Anna," he said. His voice was warm, gentle. "You honor me with your presence." Anna blinked. This was not what she expected. "My lord, she started. Please, he said, offering his arm. Walk with me. Anna hesitated. Then, slowly, she took his arm. He was strong, steady. When her weight shifted to her bad leg, he supported her without making it obvious. They walked to a small chamber off the main hall. Quieter, private. Are you well? Adrian asked when they were alone. Anna stared at him. Yes, but I do not understand. What do you not understand? Why are you being kind to me? Adrian's face grew sad. Has kindness been so rare in your life? Anna's throat tightened. She looked away. I know what they say about me, she whispered. I know what I am. And what is that? Broken, weak, a burden. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he knelt down, so they were eye to eye. Anna, he said softly, look at me. She lifted her head. You are not broken. You are not weak, and you will never be a burden to me. Tears threatened to fall. Anna fought them back. How can you say that? You do not even know me. Then let us fix that, Adrian smiled. We have time. We can learn about each other. Slowly. But the wedding will happen when you are ready, not before. Anna felt something crack open in her chest. Something that had been closed tight for years. Hope. You would wait for me. Anna, Adrian said, taking her hand gently, you are going to be my wife, my partner, my equal. I will wait as long as you need. For the first time in months, Anna smiled. Really smiled. Maybe this would not be a punishment after all. Maybe it could be the beginning of something beautiful. The castle felt different now. Still big, still cold stone walls, but somehow warmer. Anna had her own rooms in the east wing. Large windows that let in morning light, a soft bed with blue covers, and for the first time in her life, silence. No harsh voices, no cruel laughter. Adrian visited every morning after breakfast. How did you sleep? He would ask. Well, Anna would answer, and it was true. He brought small gifts, a book of poems, fresh flowers from the garden, honey cakes from the kitchen. You do not have to do this, Anna said one morning. Do what? Be kind to me. We are already engaged. The contract is signed. Adrian set down the apple tart he had brought her. Anna, do you think kindness is a favor I give you? She tilted her head. Is it not? No. He sat in the chair across from her. Kindness is who I choose to be. Contract or no contract. Anna studied his face, looking for lies, looking for the trick, but his eyes were clear, honest. I do not understand you, she admitted. That is all right. We have time. Days passed like this, slow and gentle. Anna explored the castle. She found the library with its tall shelves and dusty books. She found the garden with its rose bushes and herb patches. She met the staff. Cook was a round woman named Martha, who smiled when Anna asked about recipes. You want to learn cooking, my lady? Is that strange? Strange, child, it is wonderful. Come, let me show you how to make proper bread. Anna learned to knead dough. Her hands grew strong. Her confidence grew too. The stable master, old Tom, taught her about the horses. This one here is Gentle, he said, patting a brown mare. She is calm, good for riders who need steady. Anna learned to brush Gentle's coat, to feed her apples, to sit on her back and feel safe. You are a natural, my lady, Tom said. Animals know good hearts. In the evenings, Anna and Adrian would walk the garden paths. They talked about small things, books they liked, stories from childhood, dreams for the future. What do you want most? Adrian asked one sunset evening. Anna thought carefully. Peace, she said finally, and to matter, to be useful. You already matter, Anna. Do I? To me you do. More each day. Anna felt warm all over. No one had ever said such things to her. What do you want? She asked. To protect the people I love, to be worthy of trust. You lost someone, Anna said softly. I can see it in your eyes. Adrian stopped walking. My sister, Sarah. She died 3 years ago. I am sorry. I should have saved her. I promised I would always keep her safe. Anna reached for his hand. You are not God, Adrian. Some things we cannot control. He looked at their joined hands. How did you become so wise? Pain teaches wisdom, whether we want it or not. That night, lying in her soft bed, Anna realized something wonderful. She was not counting days until her wedding anymore. She was not afraid of tomorrow. For the first time in her life, she was excited about the future. Anna woke before dawn, not from nightmares this time, from excitement. Today, Martha was teaching her to make healing soup for the sick servants. Anna dressed quickly. Her leg felt good today, strong. In the kitchen, Martha had everything ready. Now, mind you, the secret is in the herbs, she explained. Thyme for the lungs, sage for fever. Anna learned quickly. Her hands were steady. Her memory was sharp. You have a gift for this, Martha said, watching Anna add herbs with perfect amounts. A healer's touch. Really, child. I have cooked for 40 years. I know talent when I see it. Anna glowed with pride. Later, she carried the soup to young Peter, a stable boy with a bad cough. For me, my lady, Peter's eyes were wide. Drink it slow, Anna said gently. It will help. The next morning, Peter was back at work, healthy and strong. Lady Anna's soup, he told everyone, cured me like magic. Word spread quickly. Other servants came to Anna with small hurts, cut fingers, sore backs, headaches. Anna mixed salves with lavender oil. She brewed teas with mint and honey. She listened to their troubles and offered kind words. Soon, there was a line at her door each morning. You are becoming quite famous, Adrian said, finding her in the herb garden one afternoon. Anna was picking fresh basil. Her dress was simple brown wool. Her hands were dirty. Her hair escaped its braid. She had never looked more beautiful to him. I like helping them, Anna said. It makes me feel useful. You are more than useful, Anna. You are needed. That evening, old Tom collapsed in the stables. His heart was weak. Send for the physician, someone shouted. No, Adrian said firmly. Send for Anna. Anna came running, her healing bag in her hands. She knelt beside Tom, checked his breathing, felt his pulse. Foxglove tea, she said calmly, and elevate his feet. Someone bring pillows. She worked with steady hands, no panic, no fear. Within an hour, Tom was sitting up, color back in his cheeks. She saved my life, he whispered to Adrian. Your lady, she is special. Adrian nodded. He already knew. That night, Anna found Adrian on his balcony, looking at the stars. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For believing in me. Before I believed in myself. Adrian turned to face her. Anna, there is something you should know. His voice was serious. Anna's heart skipped. What is it? My mother, she is not pleased with our engagement. Anna nodded. I know, I have heard whispers. She may try to hurt you, to break our bond. Anna lifted her chin. Let her try. Adrian blinked. This was not the frightened girl from 2 months ago. You are not afraid. I am terrified, Anna admitted. But I am not the same person I was. I have friends now, purpose, and she paused. And someone who believes I am worth protecting. Adrian stepped closer. Anna, yes? I need you to know something else. What? This started as duty, but it is not duty anymore. Anna's breath caught. What is it now? Adrian reached for her hands. It is love, Anna. I love you. The words hung in the air like stars. Anna felt tears on her cheeks. Happy tears. I love you too, she whispered. For the first time in both their lives, they were not alone. Rain drummed against the windows. The great hall was empty except for Anna and Adrian. They sat by the fire, a chessboard between them. Your move, Adrian said. Anna studied the pieces. She had been learning chess for weeks now. Adrian was a patient teacher. She moved her queen. A bold attack. Clever, Adrian smiled. You are improving quickly. I had a good teacher. Thunder rolled outside. Anna jumped slightly. Are you afraid of storms? Adrian asked gently. Not afraid, but they remind me of sad times. Tell me. Anna was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak. When I was 7, I fell from a horse. That is when my leg was hurt. I was in bed for months. Adrian listened without speaking. During storms, the pain was worse. I would cry, but my mother would not come. She said I needed to learn to suffer quietly. Anna? Adrian's voice was soft with pain. I learned to count raindrops instead of crying. It helped pass the time. What about your father? He was ashamed of me, said a daughter who could not even ride properly, was no daughter of his. Adrian set down his chess piece. Anna, look at me. She lifted her eyes. Your parents were wrong, completely wrong, but I am damaged. No. His voice was firm. You are strong, stronger than anyone I know. How can you say that? Because I have watched you. I have seen you heal the sick, comfort the sad, lead with kindness. Anna felt tears starting. I have seen you face each day with grace, even when the world was cruel to you. Adrian moved from his chair. He knelt beside her. Anna, your leg does not define you. Your scars do not limit you. You are brilliant and brave and beautiful. I do not feel beautiful. Then let me show you what I see. Adrian reached up, gently touched her face. I see eyes that sparkle when you laugh, a smile that lights up dark rooms, hands that heal and comfort. Anna's heart raced. I see a woman who turns pain into purpose, who chooses love over bitterness. Adrian, I see my future wife, my partner, my equal, the person I want to wake up next to for the rest of my life. The rain still fell outside, but Anna no longer heard it. All she heard was her heart saying yes. I was so afraid, she whispered. Of what? That you would change your mind, that you would see what everyone else sees. And what is that? A broken girl not worth loving. Adrian cupped her face in both hands. Anna Elizabeth, you are worth everything. You are worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth loving with my whole heart. Do you mean it? I have never meant anything more. Anna leaned forward, rested her forehead against his. I love you too, Adrian, more than I thought possible. Even though I could not save my sister, even though I sometimes wake up screaming from nightmares, especially because of those things, they make you human, they make you real. Outside, lightning flashed. Thunder followed, but inside, by the warm fire, two hearts beat as one. When? Anna asked softly. When what? When do you want to marry me? Really marry me? Adrian smiled. Tomorrow. Today. Right now. Anna laughed. Is 3 weeks too soon? 3 weeks is perfect. They sealed the promise with their first real kiss, soft and sweet and full of hope. The storm outside raged on, but inside everything was calm and right and beautiful. Love had finally found them both. 3 days before the wedding, Anna woke to shouting in the halls. She threw on her robe and opened her door. Servants ran past. Their faces were white with fear. "What is happening?" Anna called to Martha. "Lady Mira, my lady. She has returned with news." Anna's blood ran cold. In the great hall, Lady Mira stood before the gathered court. Her voice rang out clear and sharp. "I bring grave news about the girl called Anna." Anna pressed closer to hear. "She is not who she claims to be. She is a traitor's daughter. Her real father plotted against the crown 10 years ago." Gasps filled the hall. "She was sent here to spy, to destroy this family from within." "That is a lie." Anna stepped into the hall. All eyes turned to her. Lady Mira smiled like a snake. "Is it, dear child? Then explain this." Mira held up a letter, old parchment with a broken seal. "Your real father's confession, written before he died, confessing his crimes and naming you as his spy." Anna's world tilted. "My father died when I was 5. He was no traitor. The man who raised you was not your father. This letter proves your true blood." The hall erupted in whispers. Accusations, demand. Anna looked desperately for Adrian. Where was he? "The wedding must be stopped," Lady Mira declared. "This girl is a threat to the crown." "No," Anna's voice cracked. "I am no spy. I am no traitor." "Then how do you explain your abilities, your knowledge of herbs that can heal or poison?" The crowd murmured darker now. Anna felt the walls closing in. Everything she had built, everything she had won, crashing down around her. But then, "Mother," Adrian's voice cut through the chaos like steel. He stood in the doorway, tall and calm and furious. "Adrian, my son, thank heaven, I have exposed the truth just in time." Adrian walked slowly into the hall. His eyes never left his mother's face. "The truth? Yes. Let us talk about truth." He reached into his coat, pulled out his own letter. "This letter came yesterday from the Capitol Archives." Lady Mira's smile faltered. "It contains interesting information about a certain confession, a confession that was purchased with gold from a forger named Willem the Scribe." The hall fell silent. It seems someone paid Willem very well to create a false letter. Someone who wanted to destroy an innocent girl. Adrian's eyes burned with anger. Someone who has been trying to poison Anna since the day she arrived. Anna gasped. "Poison? Yes, my love. I have been watching, protecting you. The tea your maid brought last week, tested, tainted with wolfsbane." Lady Mira went pale. "The wine at dinner 2 nights ago? Also poisoned." Adrian stepped closer to his mother. "Did you really think I would not notice? Did you think I would let you hurt her? She is beneath you." Lady Mira shrieked. "I did this for your future. You did this for your pride and your cruelty." Adrian turned to address the hall. "Anna is innocent. She is my chosen bride. Anyone who threatens her answers to me." The crowd shuffled nervously. No one wanted to face Adrian's anger, but Anna barely heard them. Poison. Someone had been trying to kill her, and Adrian had been protecting her all along. She felt dizzy, sick. "Anna?" Adrian was beside her now. "Are you all right? I need air." He helped her outside to the garden. "Why did you not tell me?" she asked when they were alone. "I did not want to frighten you. I thought I could handle it quietly. She tried to kill me. She will never hurt you again. I promise. Anna sank onto a stone bench. What happens now? Now, my mother faces justice, and we get married as planned. But the court, they heard her accusations. They will always wonder. Adrian knelt in front of her. Anna, look at me. She lifted her head. Do you trust me with my life? Then trust me now. This will pass. Truth has a way of winning in the end. Anna nodded slowly, but deep inside, she felt something change. The frightened girl was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who would not run from shadows, someone ready to fight for her love. The wedding day dawned clear and bright. Anna stood before her mirror. Martha helped lace her into the ivory dress. It was beautiful. Simple silk with pearl buttons. A style Anna had chosen herself. You look radiant, my lady, Martha said. Anna studied her reflection. 3 months ago, she saw a broken girl, shameful, weak. Today, she saw someone different, a woman who healed the sick, who had friends, who was loved, a woman worth fighting for. Is the hall ready? Anna asked. Yes, my lady. But Martha's voice was worried. What is it? Lady Mira, she has been released from the dungeons. She says she has the right to attend. Anna's stomach tightened. Adrian agreed to this. He said you could choose. She comes, or she does not. Your decision. Anna was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Let her come. My lady. Let her come. Let them all come. Everyone who whispered. Everyone who doubted. Anna turned from the mirror. It is time they saw who I really am. The great hall was packed. Lords and ladies in fine clothes, servants along the walls, even common folk from the village. Anna entered alone. No father to walk with her. She had chosen it this way. Her steps were steady, her head held high. The limp was there. It would always be there. But today, it did not matter. She walked down the long aisle, past the faces that had mocked her, past the whispers and the doubt. At the altar, Adrian waited. Handsome in dark blue velvet, his eyes shining with love. But before Anna reached him, a voice called out, "Wait!" Lady Mira stood in the front row, her face twisted with hatred. This farce cannot continue. That girl is not worthy of royal blood. The hall fell silent. Anna stopped walking. Every eye was on her. This was the moment. The test. Anna turned to face Lady Mira. You are right, Anna said clearly. Her voice carried to every corner of the hall. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I am not worthy of royal blood, because worth is not about blood at all. Anna stepped closer. Worth is not about perfect legs or flawless faces. Her voice grew stronger. Worth is about what you do with the life you are given. She gestured to the servants along the walls. Ask Tom whose life I saved. Ask Martha whose recipes I learned. Ask the children I taught to read. Murmurs of agreement now. Ask the people I have healed, the sorrows I have comforted, the friends I have made. Anna turned to address the entire hall. You called me broken, shameful, a burden. She paused. But I am not broken. I am bent, but not broken. And sometimes, bent things are stronger than straight ones. She looked directly at Lady Mira. You tried to poison me, to destroy me, to make me disappear. Lady Mira's face was white. But I am still here, still standing, still choosing love over hatred. Anna turned back to Adrian. He was smiling through tears. I am Anna Elizabeth. I limp when I walk. I have scars on my heart. I am not perfect. She reached for Adrian's hands. But I am worthy of love, worthy of respect, worthy of a future filled with hope. The hall erupted in applause. Cheers. Stamping feet. Even some of the nobles who had whispered were clapping. Lady Mira sank into her chair, defeated. Anna had won. Not through cruelty or revenge, through truth, through courage, through standing tall in her own light. Well said, my lady, the priest spoke softly. Shall we continue? Anna nodded. The rest of the ceremony was a blur of joy. Vows spoken, rings exchanged, promises made. When Adrian kissed his bride, the hall shook with celebration. Anna was no longer the broken girl. She was the woman who chose to heal instead of hurt, to love instead of hate, to stand instead of fall. And everyone who witnessed it knew they had seen something extraordinary. The birth of a queen who would rule with her heart. You may kiss your bride. Adrian's lips met Anna's as the great hall exploded in cheers. When they parted, Anna saw tears of joy in his eyes. Hello, husband, she whispered. Hello, wife, he whispered back. The celebration feast was magnificent. Long tables filled with roasted meats, fresh bread, honeyed wine and sweet cakes. Musicians played, people danced, laughter filled the air. Anna sat beside Adrian at the high table. Her hand rested in his. Any regrets? He asked softly. Anna looked out at the happy faces. Tom raising his cup in a toast. Martha beaming from the kitchen doorway. The children she had taught waving from their table. Only one, Anna said. Adrian looked concerned. What? I regret waiting so long to believe I deserved happiness. Adrian squeezed her hand. We have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. As the evening wore on, people approached their table. Lords and ladies who had once ignored Anna now offered congratulations. Your speech was inspiring, my lady, said Lord William. We were wrong about you, admitted Lady Sarah. But the moment that meant most came near midnight. A small girl approached shyly. Lucy, the baker's daughter. Anna had helped cure her fever last month. Lady Anna, Princess Anna. Just Anna, sweetheart. Lucy held up a small flower crown made of daisies. I made this for you, for being so kind. Anna knelt down to Lucy's height. Let the child place the simple crown on her head. It is the most beautiful crown I have ever worn, Anna said truthfully. Lucy beamed and ran back to her family. Adrian watched with a full heart. You know what that was. What? Your real coronation. The one that matters. Later, as the celebration wound down, Adrian and Anna walked onto the balcony. The stars were bright. The air was cool and sweet. What are you thinking about? Adrian asked. Anna leaned against the stone railing. About how different everything is from 3 months ago. Different? How? Then I was alone, scared, convinced I was worthless. Anna turned to face him. Tonight I am surrounded by people who love me. I know my own worth, and I am married to the most wonderful man in the kingdom. The most wonderful man. I think you are biased. Anna laughed. Completely biased, and I do not care. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Adrian? Yes. What do you think our children will be like? Adrian smiled. Smart, like their mother. Stubborn, like their father. Will you love them even if they are different? Even if they have challenges? Anna, I will love our children exactly as they are. Perfect and imperfect. Strong and vulnerable. Just like I love their mother. Anna felt her heart overflow. I want to teach them something important, she said. What? That worth comes from kindness, not appearance. That courage means standing up for others. That love is always stronger than hate. They will learn that from watching you. As the night grew late, they went inside, past the sleeping servants, past the dying embers in the fireplace, to their new chambers, their new life together. "Are you happy?" Adrian asked as they prepared for bed. Anna thought of everything. The pain of the past, the joy of today, the hope for tomorrow. "I am more than happy," she said. "I am home." And she was, not because of the castle or the title or the fine clothes, but because she had found someone who saw her completely and loved her exactly as she was. Someone who believed she was worthy before she believed it herself. Someone who had helped her discover that she was not broken at all. She was beautifully, perfectly, courageously herself, and that was more than enough. It was everything. 2 years had passed since the wedding that changed everything. Princess Anna stood in the castle's great garden, but it looked different now. Half of it had been turned into a healing garden. Rows of herbs and medicinal plants grew in neat beds. The other half was a school, simple wooden benches where children came to learn reading and writing. Anna walked slowly between the herb rows. Her belly was round with their first child. "The chamomile is growing well," she said to Martha, who worked beside her. "Your touch, my lady. You have magic hands." Anna smiled. "Not magic, just care." She heard footsteps on the garden path. Adrian appeared, still handsome, but now with laugh lines around his eyes. "How are my 2 favorite people today?" he asked, placing a gentle hand on her belly. "Your son is very active today," Anna replied. "Son? What if it is a daughter? Then she will be just as loved." Adrian kissed her forehead. "The council meeting ran long, but I have good news." "What news?" "The king has approved our proposal. Every village in the kingdom will have a healing school, like yours." Anna's eyes lit up. "Really? Really? You will train the teachers, share your knowledge." Anna felt tears of joy. "So many people will be helped. Because of you, my love, because you showed us a better way." They walked together toward the castle. Children waved from the school benches. Princess Anna, they called. Anna waved back. Each child's face was precious to her. "Do you remember what you said on our wedding night?" Adrian asked. "Which part?" "About teaching our children that worth comes from kindness." Anna nodded. "Look around you," Adrian said. "You are already teaching that lesson to everyone." Anna looked at the garden school, at the children learning, at the servants who worked with dignity and pride, at the castle that was now a home filled with laughter instead of fear. "We did this together," she said. "Yes, but you started it. You showed us what was possible." That evening, they sat by the fire. Anna's feet up on a cushion, Adrian reading aloud from a book of poems. There was a knock at the door. "Come in," Anna called. Tom entered, hat in hand. "Begging your pardon, my lady, but there is something you should see." They followed him to the main courtyard. The crowd had gathered. Servants, guards, villagers from town. In the center stood a young woman, travel-stained and tired. She held a small child in her arms. "Please," the woman said. "I walked 3 days to get here. My baby is sick." They said, Princess Anna could help. Anna stepped forward immediately. "Of course. Bring her to the healing room." "But my lady," the woman said, tears in her eyes, "I have no money, nothing to pay you with." Anna smiled gently. "Child, I do not heal for money. I heal because I can, because we are all worthy of care." 2 hours later, the baby was sleeping peacefully, fever broken, breathing clear. The mother wept with relief. "How can I thank you?" Go home safely, Anna said. Love your child well. That is thanks enough. After they left, Anna found Adrian on their balcony again. Tired? He asked. Good tired. The best kind. Adrian wrapped his arms around her from behind. His hands rested on their growing child. Anna, yes? Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had never met? Anna leaned back against his chest. Sometimes, but not with sadness anymore. No? No. Because I believe we were meant to find each other. My pain led me here. Your loss taught you compassion. Everything happened as it needed to. Even Lady Mira's cruelty. Anna was quiet for a moment. Lady Mira had been banished from court. She lived now in a distant convent, alone with her bitterness. Even that, Anna said finally. It taught me I was stronger than I knew. And now? Now I know that broken things can be mended, that scars can become sources of strength, that love really does conquer everything. Their child kicked strongly. Both parents laughed. He agrees with you, Adrian said. Or she, Anna corrected. Or she. Later, as they prepared for bed, Anna caught her reflection in the mirror. She was different from the frightened girl who had arrived here 3 years ago. Confidence showed in her posture. Purpose glowed in her eyes. Love softened her features. She still walked with a slight limp. She always would. But now she knew what Adrian had seen from the beginning. She was not broken. She was beautifully, perfectly, uniquely herself. And that was more than enough. It was everything she needed to be. The girl they had called broken had become the woman who healed others. The princess they had rejected had become the Queen of Hearts. And she lived happily ever after. Not because life was perfect, but because she had learned the greatest secret of all. True worth comes from within. True beauty comes from kindness. True love sees everything and chooses to stay. And with that knowledge, any life can become a fairy tale, even one that starts with tears, especially one that starts with tears, because the most beautiful stories are written by those who know both sorrow and joy, who understand that both are necessary, who choose hope anyway, who choose love anyway, who choose to heal anyway. Anna had chosen all of these things, and her story became legend. The broken princess who became whole, not through magic, but through courage, through love, through believing, finally, that she deserved happiness, and she did. They all do, every broken heart, every wounded spirit, every person who has ever felt not enough. Anna's story whispers to them all. You are worthy. You are loved. You are enough, just as you are, always. Forever.